Deep beneath the Antarctic waters, something extraordinary is happening that will completely change how you see these frozen giants. What if I told you that icebergs aren't just massive chunks of ice drifting aimlessly through the ocean, but actually thriving metropolises teeming with life? Today, we're diving into one of nature's most unexpected ecosystems, where creatures have turned floating ice into their own personal paradise. Picture this: you're standing on the deck of a research vessel surrounded by nothing but endless ocean when suddenly a colossal iceberg emerges from the mist. Your first instinct might be to admire its pristine beauty or marvel at its size. But here's what most people miss: that seemingly barren chunk of ice is actually buzzing with more life than a bustling city street. Let me paint you a picture that will blow your mind. As soon as an iceberg breaks away from a glacier and begins its journey into the open ocean, it becomes a beacon of hope for countless creatures. Think of it as nature's version of a luxury cruise ship, complete with multiple decks, restaurants, and even penthouse suites. The difference? This cruise ship is made entirely of ancient ice and attracts some of the most fascinating passengers you've ever seen. Starting from the top, icebergs create their own weather systems. The ice surface acts like a giant air conditioner, cooling the surrounding air and creating unique microclimates. Seabirds quickly discover these floating islands, using them as rest stops during their epic migrations across the Southern Ocean. Petrels, albatrosses, and skuas transform these ice platforms into temporary airports where they can refuel and socialize before continuing their journeys. But the real magic happens both above and below the waterline. As icebergs slowly melt, they release nutrients that have been locked away in glacial ice for thousands of years. These nutrients act like fertilizer, creating underwater gardens that stretch for miles around each berg. Microscopic phytoplankton explode in abundance, forming the foundation of an entire food web that rivals any tropical reef. Here's where things get really interesting. Krill, those tiny shrimp-like creatures that form the backbone of Antarctic ecosystems, gather around icebergs in numbers that boggle the mind. We're talking about swarms so dense they turn the water red and can be seen from space. These krill superhighways attract everything from fish and squid to seals and whales, creating feeding frenzies that can last for weeks. Imagine being underwater near one of these glacial giants. The scene would be like something from an alien planet. Translucent jellyfish drift past like living crystals, their bodies pulsing with bioluminescent light. Schools of Antarctic silverfish weave through underwater ice caves, their antifreeze proteins allowing them to thrive in water that would kill most other fish instantly. Meanwhile, leopard seals patrol the perimeter like underwater leopards, their spotted coats perfectly camouflaged against the dappled light filtering through the ice. The architecture of each iceberg creates unique neighborhoods for different species. Shallow ledges become nurseries for young fish, while deep crevices provide shelter for more secretive creatures. Some icebergs even develop their own tide pools as they partially melt and refreeze, creating miniature worlds within worlds. What's absolutely mind-blowing is how quickly these ecosystems establish themselves. Within days of an iceberg entering open water, life begins to colonize every available surface. Algae coat the underwater portions in vibrant greens and browns, creating underwater forests that sway with the ocean currents. These algae gardens become grazing grounds for everything from tiny copepods to massive craybeater seals. Scientists have discovered that different types of icebergs support different communities. Flat, tabular bergs create expansive platforms perfect for large gatherings of seabirds and seals. Meanwhile, pinnacled bergs with dramatic spires and arches provide vertical habitat zones, almost like underwater apartment buildings where different species occupy different floors based on their specific needs. The life cycle of these floating ecosystems follows the life cycle of the iceberg itself. As the ice slowly melts and shrinks, communities shift and adapt. Species that initially thrived on the surface might move to underwater caves, while deep water specialists gradually colonize areas that were once solid ice. Its evolution in fast forward played out over months rather than millennia. Perhaps most remarkably, these iceberg ecosystems serve as stepping stones for marine life crossing vast ocean distances. Young animals use them as safe harbors while learning to survive in the harsh Antarctic environment. Some species time their breeding cycles to coincide with iceberg migrations, ensuring their offspring have mobile nurseries to call home. Recent research has revealed that a single large iceberg can support biodiversity levels comparable to tropical coral reefs. The difference is that these frozen reefs are constantly moving, spreading life and nutrients across thousands of miles of ocean as they drift with the currents. These glacial giants remind us that life finds a way to flourish in even the most unlikely places. Every iceberg tells a story of adaptation, resilience, and the incredible interconnectedness of our planet's ecosystems. Next time you see footage of Antarctic icebergs, remember, you're not just looking at ice, you're witnessing some of nature's most dynamic and surprising cities, floating through our oceans like frozen arcs, carrying precious cargo of life itself.